Hi everyone, thank you for joining me to this discussion. I'm Chiel from Datafold. I'm a software engineer and I started as machine learning engineering. I did DevOps and now I'm working in the backend at Datafold. Datafold is an automated data testing tool which integrates nicely throughout your workflow. And what it does, it compares two versions of a data set to identify the differences. And it's actually called a data diff. It's like a Git diff. It's like a Git diff, but for your data. So, thank you. So today I will be joined by Felix and Jorrit from Fin. They will answer all your questions, how to balance speed and quality while you build, and how they have utilized that with automated checks to supercharge their analytics and data engineers. Could you join me in welcoming Felix and Jorrit?
Thank you here. Very nice introduction, and thanks a lot for having us. So we'll conclude today. We've heard some exciting sessions, some exciting keynotes, mainly about data mesh, a lot of practical examples. We're going to, in this last keynote, also have a practical example by our company. And yeah, very happy to kick it off. So first of all, I will set the scene, give you some context around what we're talking about. So which industry we're from, and how our data journey looked like in detail. And then Jorrit, as a technical expert, will show you one of the different initiatives we took, which is a technical one, to give you a practical example how to work with these great tools that we've heard so much today about. So first of all, what kind of industry and what kind of company are we from? So we are coming from Fin. Fin is an e-commerce solution for car subscriptions. So we're trying to disrupt how people own cars, headquartered in Munich and also in New York. And I brought one slide to summarize the context we're in. So we're in what you call a high growth scale up. That means when I joined Fin and when we started the data journey at Fin in 2021, it was still a pretty small company. In the last 2 years, we managed to increase the ARR by the factor 28. And that, of course, came with a lot of challenges. And I know that many of you in the audience also know these challenges from fast-growing companies. I listed a few of them there. So first of all, this, of course, comes with a lot of operational increase. You onboard a lot of people to the company, and in some form or another, they all interact with data. So they contribute to the stack, and they contribute to the dbt repo in the end, but also they have to consume data. And that is an enormous challenge when you talk about onboarding 400 people in total. Also, the foundation changes quite a lot in these companies. So Fin is also a strong brand for no-code and building quick MVPs and having really good processes quickly. But building a data foundation on that is challenging. And we managed to build a more stable foundation in the past 2 years, which made it a bit easier. But however, in a bigger company, you also have stricter requirements. So we're both VC and debt funded. And these banks, for example, have high requirements for data quality, and that, of course, goes into how you design and how you execute your dbt developments. And lastly, all the great people you onboard to contribute to the code also can make it quite complicated to look through it, and we've seen some examples today of how to counter that, and we'll also show you one further from us today. So the dilemma we faced was keeping up with the speed of the company and scaling data as quickly as the company, and also slowing it down to have a focus on data quality and on the basics. And I will describe it a bit in detail how our journey looked exactly throughout the years. So when we started off in 2021, we were still a pretty small team, right? We're the central data team. That's also the setup where most companies start off. And that was great alignment. So we had like 3 people on the team. You could easily feed them with 2 pizzas. And all the different problems we had, you could tackle with human connection and communication. And we had fewer DBT models, talking about a few dozen maybe, up to 100, and pretty stable pipelines. However, the team was limited in capacity, and we didn't know what to prioritize exactly. We didn't know what business problems to support. And also, it was pretty slow in delivery because the company, of course, grew, and our team couldn't keep up. That's why around 1 year later, in 2022, we decided to hire what you call embedded or federated data teams, which work specifically on one domain, like sales, marketing, operations. And this, of course, had a great increase in speed. So they could focus on their domain, they could accelerate all the insight generation in their department, and also build up knowledge for future projects, and not just work on one project, then do the next one, but rather accumulate a lot of knowledge on the go. What in the end became sort of a tipping point was, however, aligning all these different contributions, and of course a lot of technical debt, as you know it, creeped in our DBT repo, and that was where the enhanced speed actually led to less quality in both data quality as well as quality of certain deliverables. And this began to get even worse in 2023, where we noticed that whenever we want to introduce more governance, and we've heard some examples today how to do it, for example, have a 4i review with the data engineering team centrally, this actually led to less speed again. And we noticed for our organization that there is some kind of frontier there that you try to overcome. And so when we, for example, reduced these measurements and had less governance again, that of course also impacted speed positively, but also had a quality issues coming with it. So we noticed there's a trade-off, and we really thought about how to tackle this. At this point in time, we had close to 30 monthly contributors to our DBT repo and around 1,800 models. So we brainstormed and evaluated some projects on how we face this frontier and break through it, and answer the question, how can you let these embedded teams be really fast and fulfill their mission that's really valuable for the company while ensuring high quality and not compromising any data quality? And that's why I want to pass it on to Jorrit to present our automated CI solution.
All right. Thanks, Felix. Hi. I will be talking about how we break through this frontier. So we basically want to get speed and quality at the same time. And we will be talking about basically Datafold, DBT, and SQL Fluff, executed in GitHub Actions, which is how we implement our CI. And more specifically, the topics that we cover is how to ensure code quality, code validity, lineage rules, so to say, and also execute certain other policies that you want to execute on your DBT monorepo, for example. And we will now jump into basically details, and I will just give examples how this looks like. Focusing on basically code quality, here we mentioned the linting, which means, like, imagine you are working with 17 or 1,800 models, and you have to also open a lot of code from other people. And what you actually want to avoid is that every model looks different. So you want to have one style of code, indentation, how keywords are written, and stuff like that. And what we do in the CI is we basically check for that, and we also hint the developer, hey, there is an issue with your code formatting or your code quality. Please fix it. A lot of stuff can be fixed automatically. You can see this on the bottom. So this on the bottom left, this is an output from SQL Fluff, and it says, hey, we have a bunch of stuff that is not correct. Do you want me to fix it automatically? Yes, and you do it. And then in the end, what you get is the stuff on the right. So you get you get a file that looks similar to the other files in your repository, and basically every decentralized and also independent contributor to our DBT monorepo produces code that looks exactly the same. And this is, since it's in the CI, no one can merge code which looks like on the top left. So it's basically impossible for anyone to bring in code that does not fulfill this criteria. So, okay, check. We have basically code that looks same. Whenever I open something, I don't have to first understand the structure. Everything looks really nice. The next one is about Datafold. So we heard this already today, this fear of, hey, I changed an upstream model. What will happen to my downstream models? Is there a KPI that will somehow spike? Will business people come around and say, hey, you broke my report? So there is some kind of fear if you have a lot of models to break something that you're not aware of. And what Datafold is doing, it basically gives you some kind of interface during pull request that says, hey, this is the impact of your change, and this is the impact on every downstream model. Please look at it. And what you get is basically confidence, so you can actually make a merge request and you can see if there is a downstream impact, and you can completely skip, if there's nothing, you can completely skip investigating downstream impact because Datafold does that for you. It checks, is there an impact? No, merge, and if there's an impact, you can open it, like on the right side here, to basically see this is the value in the production data set, and this is the value after your change. And then you can judge yourself, is this as expected or is this something I want to look at? Maybe I did something wrong in my code. And basically Datafold makes this kind of fear to merge completely go away because you can check the downstream dependencies for issues. The next one is on lineage. We saw a lot of plots about like gigantic lineages that look really crazy and you cannot navigate. And of course, like everyone has some kind of rules how you want the lineage to be on a high level. So we have the raw data, which we call it source data here. Then you maybe have some kind of staging layer and many other layers. And what you want to prevent is the arrow with the red sign here. You don't want a KPI to directly reference, for example, your staging layer. That's one rule at Fin. And this is something we also automatically prevent from doing. So someone creating a KPI or some model on a KPI layer that does this reference is not mergeable. And therefore, it doesn't happen. And the lineage stays in the boundaries that you want to have. And since it's automatically executed during pull request time, no one has to look at it in a review. Basically, the CI tells the developer, hey, you did a mistake, please fix this, and then you can merge it. The next one is basically this is like the catch-all slide for every other rule that you want to execute. So what we do here is in GitHub Actions, we execute basically Python scripts that check is an owner present in the model, are there uniqueness and not null tests for primary keys, and many other stuff like naming conventions. You might have your own rules that you want to have checked. And what this is doing, you can imagine it as a collection of Python scripts that run on text files or SQL files. And they just scan through the SQL files or YAML files and look, is the owner meta text set, or are there certain things going on in the DBT model that you don't want to see. And on the right side, you can see basically this is just a configuration of the GitHub CI. So you just chain the checks that you want to have. And then whenever someone merges code in the pull request screen, those checks are executed. And if anything is harmed, again, the person cannot merge. And this prevents, again, issues coming into your repository. And to summarize, so what this does is, first, no one has to learn those rules by heart. So you don't have to teach people, hey, do this and that and this and that. Whenever we roll out a new policy, this policy is kind of automated immediately and rolled out across all data teams. So whenever policies are changed or introduced, you can really do this really efficiently by just adding a new Python script, running in your CI, and then your new rule is enforced, and no one can merge anything that's harming that rule. And this is how we believe, how we got basically equality and speed. The stuff is automated. People can learn it at scale. You can roll it out at scale. We can stay fast because there's some friction involved whenever you roll out a new policy, but also the teams adapt really quickly. So they learn the rules while they work with it, and then they maintain their fast speed while at the same time quality is ensured because they cannot merge something that's not according to our quality gates, so to say. This wraps it up. And now give you one more outlook. So all you have seen now is focusing on the data teams part. So we make sure that whatever data teams do is fast and high quality. But at the same time, as you know, a lot of issues are also coming from basically not the data team part. So system owners or on the source data, quality issues that go into your data warehouse coming from whatever data source you have. And that's something we're going to tackle in the future, so there's some kind of sneak peek. And one big learning that I want to share here is that this part, I mean, we hear data contracts a lot, but this is a really non-technical part because like covering source data is about different priorities, and people are not really incentivized to clean data. If they are in a transactional team and business is running, then why care about data quality? And yeah, that's something we're going to cover in the future. But just to basically wrap this picture up, what we spoke about is focusing on data teams quality. And now, let's go back. Now we have some time for questions. Handing over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for this amazing presentation about how to balance quality and speed. I want to open up with a couple of questions, and we have some time for more questions later from you guys. So, first question. How does your team benefit from this new way of working with the CI checks? Does you get more trust from the business or more bandwidth for new projects?
Yeah, very good question. So what is the actual impact? I do think both. So there's more trust because all the DBT developments are less often the cause of friction and of data quality issues. In the last page that Jorrit showed, you basically saw it. So we try to cover really that the analysts can merge anything of bad data quality. And of course, that puts more trust into what they do and what they deliver and all the insights they generate. And with the more speed, yeah, of course, you have more bandwidth and can focus more on also generating these insights and being business driven. And yeah, working less with breaking pipelines and hunting downstream issues that all of these things we did in the past. So.
Awesome. And were there any cultural changes that needed to happen within your organization to make these CI changes actually work and implement them?
Yes. I mean, whenever you roll out a policy or something that changes how people work, it usually in the first second introduces friction to their workflow. And what you have to make sure is that like a policy is nice, but people also have to support it and understand the reasoning behind it. And culture-wise, I think it's super important to have some kind of support channel. So whenever someone is blocked by a policy or a CI check that the person does not understand, the person should not be blocked longer than, 15 minutes or an hour. So we have a support channel where basically the central data team that creates those policies is advised to leave no support request unanswered for longer than 60 minutes. Because we really want to reduce the friction whenever we roll out a new policy. And I think that's super important for the culture. Otherwise, it might be like, hey, there's one team making our workflow harder, and we don't accept that. And that's important. Like the people part is really, really huge here. It's not only a technical solution that you can just throw over the fence and say, here, deal with it. Doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that's very essential because I think we all know that transformation of the organization is more people work than often technical. And talking about people, are there people here that want to ask a question? If so, raise your hand. There will be a microphone coming your way. Oh, first we'll start here.
Thank you. So I'm interested in how you handle when you introduce a new rule and there's existing models that don't meet that. Do you go through a process of tidying that up? Does it become a problem for the next person that touches that model? How do you handle that?
Depends a bit on the model. So sometimes it's easy to roll out. It's for every model, but we also have cases where we discuss basically to have some kind of meta tag where we disabled certain checks for certain models, which first have to be cleaned up and made nicer for the policy. So it's the more models you have, the harder it gets to introduce new stuff. And it's also something you, case by case, have to make sure that's really smooth. There's a smooth transition and not some part of your company can suddenly no longer merge stuff.
Thank you.
Hi. So 2 questions. Firstly, what would be the most sort of useful rule that you've added that you think has increased your quality the most? and I've already forgotten the other question. You can answer that one first.
You want?
Yeah, I think like two that come to my mind is lineage and naming. So because they're pretty easy, right? When you come from a blank canvas, then it's easy to imagine everything working. But talking to other companies, that's often a problem, even though it sounds simple. So enforcing really a naming convention that's very well aligned, and checking every model if it applies, and also then taking this naming convention to enforce the lineage as well, to say staging, integration, whatever other prefix you have. That really helped a lot, and it's also something that most analysts see when they join a company. They see the names, they try to connect it, make sense out of it, and it's pretty easy, but it's a lot of impact, I guess.
Thank you. And the second question was, are you using SQL Fluff to implement these things, or if you have custom Python scripts, how does that actually work?
So SQL Fluff is only for the linting part, and we have a lot of Python scripts which are run as pre-commit hooks, and they check naming convention, tags being present or not, and tests. And SQL Fluff is only for the linting part.
I think there are a couple more questions. Thank you.
So it seems like you kind of got trust back within the data team, at least with those rules you implemented. How did you kind of potentially earn back the company's trust as well during that midpoint of lowering quality but at the same time speeding up within the data team? So the data team, you created rules to improve the quality of it. How did you communicate to the business what you changed? Because SQL Fluff and all these rules are things that we understand as analytics engineers, but how do you communicate that back to the business so they can trust the data again?
I'm not sure if they are aware about the CI change the business, to be honest.
Now they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super technical thing. We usually, I think they're not aware, to be honest. Usually, if there's an issue coming, for example, from source data that I said, hey, that's the part that we don't control yet, then business users just see an KPI being wrong, being off, or something, and this still happens, of course. And they don't really differentiate if this is coming from basically the data team's work or the transactional team's work, so they don't know this difference. And therefore, an issue is just an issue. And that we mitigated one big part of issues or reduced it is, not really quantified or somehow measured, visible to the business people, so they're not aware, I guess.
I think trust is often built by how much pain your end consumer is feeling. And if they feel less pain, they trust you more easily. And that's something that you will build over time. So implementing SQL Fluff will not fix all, but it's like reducing cognitive load, which makes engineers actually doing a better work, doing more, will in time will increase trust. Are there any more? I see. Yeah. Awesome.
Can you speak a little bit on the difference between pre-commit DBT and DBT checkpoint?
So the pre-commit hooks are basically just Python scripts that run, scan whatever you changed and look at text files to see, there's a reference that should not be there. And what was the DBT checks? I'm not sure if I'm...
DBT checkpoint, it's from the repo that you've got. The original one you forked from, they've changed the name to DBT checkpoint, and I wanted to know if you knew a little bit about how that's changed.
I'm not sure if I know what you're referring to.
So,
you understand it?
The pre-commit config that you showed, the checks are from DBT checkpoint.
Yes.
That's what he was mentioning.
Yeah, I think we took this. There's one package which is called DBT pre-commit check or something, or checkpoints. It was forked and then renamed, so there was some kind of ownership change in between that I'm not super aware of. But we took basically this idea to implement checks in this kind of scheme, so that people can also execute it on their VS Code to run basically the pre-commit checks while they, before they commit or during commit, and then also the same stuff is executed in the pipeline. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question regarding the Datafold part and the checks that were implemented there. Could you elaborate a bit on what is a check exactly? Are these summary statistics of the before and after deployment? And if some small changes taking place, does it check all the models or only the downstream ones for differences? That's the question.
Yeah. So at the core, it's doing a data diff. So it checks what your data would look like if you merge your changes and what's currently in production. And it's like value level differences. Like we'll just aggregate it, and based on like some rules you have implemented, you get alarmed. And also you can like see all like downstream impact. So if you have like Slim CI with DBT, we can also like implement that. So basically how you configure it, if you will only want to check like the direct model or like all the downstreams, depending on like how large your organization is. Like smaller organizations just want to check everything. Larger is just like insanely time consuming to do that. So that's why also like Slim CI exists. Yeah, and we'll also like plug into your like BI tools. So for example, if you have Looker dashboard, we'll also say, hey, this Looker dashboard has changed because you changed your DBT model. Does that answer your question?
I could also add a practical example of what exactly we look at. So for example, we have a few really important reports that also get changed like upstream a few times. And then Datafold has, for example, the percentage of value changes. And that's always like a key metric for us to see if it's like 99 or 90% or something, then it might already be very important and you have to look into it. And if it's like 100% and the values all stay the same, then it's basically good to go. And sometimes you can also look in statistical measures if you need to. But these are like the key metrics that are really helpful for a quick analysis.
Are there any more questions? Well, then I have another question for you guys. What kind of like suggestions would you have for like data teams that are just starting with CI? So, well, they dabble around with DBT and are started like using checks from scratch. How would you approach that? Do you have tips for them?
Yeah, I would say one check at a time. So I spoke already about friction that you introduce to other people's workflow, and therefore, like instead of releasing 5 checks or 10, start with one, see how it feels, have a look at how people react to it, support them when they are blocked, and then like start introducing more and more quality checks and grow this over time. This is not something to be thrown over the fence, as I said. So this is really, this would be harmful, and I think slowly growing it and adding more checks on top is the strategy that we went at least and worked out.
Thank you very much. So, like, probably you're all looking for a drink. We'll still be upstairs. Like, they will also be there. If you have any questions or want to discuss anything, feel free to join and enjoy your drinks. Thank you.